everybody gets you ready for Utah football more than the KSL Sports Zone.
Ready?
Kyle Whittingham and the Utes hit the road for a battle against West Virginia. Your home for the best coverage of Utah football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This is Hans Olsen and Scotty G. Presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We got a big one, folks, coming up this weekend. BYU, undefeated, hitting the road to square off against Colorado. Not only is he a heck of a play-by-play guy, he's got the best voice in the Big 12. Mark Johnson, kind enough to join us. Mark, how are you?
Hey, Mark.
Gentlemen, good to be on with you.
And it's great to hear your voice, Mark. I mean, just beyond you being a great guy, it's great to hear your voice.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm looking forward to BYU coming to town this weekend. We had a late one last weekend, and I got home at 4 a.m, so I can't wait to do that again this weekend.
Have they worked out something for you where you can actually have a cowboy hat with headphones kind of installed into them so you could at least wear the hat during a broadcast?
You know, I've been asking my engineer to work on that because I prefer having the hat on, but so far he hasn't come up. He's had a couple of different inventions he's come up with. I didn't like any of them, so he's still working on it for me.
All right. Back to the drawing board.
So Greg and I, Greg Rubel, you know, my co-host on the BYU calls, we were driving back from Greenville after that win against East Carolina, and we were listening to our guy Mark, and you guys were just wrapping up that Wyoming game, giving us some post-game, and you sounded very encouraged with what you saw against Wyoming. Has Colorado found their quarterback, and do you feel like maybe they've found a bit of their stride?
Well, I hope so, considering what we had kind of built up leading into the season. And, you know, that first game against Georgia Tech, I think Georgia Tech's a very quality football team. And, you know, it was a one-possession game within 2 minutes of the end of that one. And so I didn't have any – I told Sioux fans after that game, I said, you know, be concerned. Don't be discouraged after this one here because, you know, Sioux made some mistakes. And I thought that Caden Sullivan, the starting quarterback, the transfer from Liberty, wasn't great. I thought he was playing rather hesitant in that game. Then they take on Delaware. Delaware's a nice enough, you know, team out of Conference USA, making a move to FBS. But that's where the quarterback shuffle began right there because, again, Caden didn't play very well. And so then they brought in Julian Lewis, the true freshman, who was only 17 years old at the time. And then bring in Ryan Staub. Then Staub starts the next week. And so it was a little bit concerning. And this past week, after getting a week off, I thought Caden Salter played loose. He played the way you saw him on tape at Liberty. And so it's one game. I'm not going to, you know, put together any kind of conclusion at this point in time, but I thought he played the way we expected him to play. Now let's see what happens, obviously, against the Cougars this weekend. But if he's playing the way I think he can and the way we expected, I think this can be kind of a fun offense to watch. And so now we'll have to see if he can stack a couple of games together.
Is there any talk in that community or around that team of the Alamo Bowl and remember the Alamo, so to speak, going into this game?
Well, you know, I think traditionally there probably would be. But the fact that in this era of college football now where you turn over half your roster every single year, you know, I don't think anybody thinks much about it. Prime was asked in his press conference about that today. He kind of made that point. He said it's a very different team. He said, you know, a bunch of new guys for BYU, obviously, as well. But for Colorado, I mean, think about it. 30% of this team was not here for the spring game, right? And so after the spring game, then another third of this team essentially came on in. And so it's a very different squad. So it's being mentioned more so by the media than is by anybody inside the team.
What do they excel at? What do you know when you go into a game, Mark, that you're going to see it? You're going to get that?
That's a great question. You know, Gary Barnett and I, during the pregame, that was the one thing I had. I always kind of put down a list of things we're going to get to in the pregame. And the number one thing I had on there in capital letters highlighted in red is, what are we? I'm not sure I could have given you any solid answer before the game against Wyoming about what is the identity of Colorado football. You know, the last couple of years on offense, it was a high wire act, right? It was Shedeur and Travis and you know, all the Jimmy Horn and all the wide receivers that they had around the NFL. I don't think this team had an identity, and I'm not willing to say after one game, you know, where they looked pretty good against Wyoming, that they've really got an identity. The idea, I think, or at least the vision going into the season was they upgraded the offensive line. I think they're the fourth heaviest offensive line in college football, and all the starters are there. So the expectation was you've got a quarterback that's got dynamic legs. Okay, this is going to be a team that runs the football. On defense, year number one under Robert Livingston a year ago, were they the greatest defensive numbers? No, but you know what they did do? They forced turnovers, and they got to the quarterback. They led the Big 12 in sacks. Well, they didn't do that through the first 3 games of the season. And so I don't know what the identity of this team is at this point. Last week, Caden Salter looked awful good. Threw for 304 yards, rushed for 85 or whatever it was. They rushed for 190-some yards in that ball game. That's what we thought. Defensively, they played with their hair on fire last week. That's what we thought we were going to see. And so I don't know that I could tell you right now what I will count on Saturday night. I know what I hope to see. It's a little bit of what we saw last week against Wyoming. And like I said before, I guess time will tell if they're finally finding themselves.
How much of those rushing yards were called plays, and how much of it was escaping the pocket?
I would say probably he was better this game, I think, not just leaving for the sake of leaving. And, he's got the ability to do that, but obviously they want him to go through his progression, and then if he has to escape. And so, I don't know, maybe a third of what we saw were him probably doing that. That's one of the nice aspects to his game, though, the fact that he has got a quality arm. He can throw a deep ball, which we saw a couple of plays there. And then when he has to run, he can take off, and he's dynamic with his feet. And so, and again, because of the small sample size, essentially he's played 2.5 games now. I can't really give you a great judgment on if he leaves early or if he's the kind of guy that's going to be patient with it. But what we saw last week was a step in the right direction. So that's I tell you what, I don't know that, Gary always says through his years of coaching, you don't know what your team is until you've played 5 games. Then you'll know what your team is. I think that's a pretty good general rule. I'm not sure it's true with this football team because here we are through 4 games. I don't have a clue what Colorado is right now, and I'm not sure the 5th game is going to answer that because I think it's still evolving a little bit.
Talk to me a little bit about these 2 DNs, Arden Walker and Caden Wade. I know they've racked up a couple of sacks, transfer guys. How consistent are they, and do you feel like they can provide the pressure against this true freshman?
Well, you'd like to hope so. Keaton Wade's the guy that, if I can borrow, again, Coach Barnett's term, he always says he's got suddenness, right? He's got an explosive step. And so he's a nice player that's kind of evolved over the last couple of years. And Arden Walker's a legacy guy. His father, Arthur, played for the Buffs back in the day, was at Cherry Creek High School here in the metro area, went to Missouri, then transferred back. And so he's evolved into a very nice player as well. Very solid, steady guy there on the edge. I think the edge guys have played relatively well through 4 games. They've been a little bit soft up the middle with this team, and that wasn't something we expected because, again, the heavy transfer activity we saw coming in and where those guys were coming from, you kind of expected them to be a little bit stouter up front. Now, they were last week because I think they were active last week, and so they were better against what is a pretty physical football team in Wyoming. So those ends have been good. I wouldn't say they've been great. The sack numbers are not really much to brag about at this point in time through 4 games.
Given up 9 sacks so far on the season. Is a lot of it, I mean, not every sack is created equal. Sometimes it's on the O-line. Sometimes it's on the quarterback. If you're divvying up blame for a lot of those sacks, percentage-wise, where would you go on that?
Well, I think they can be spread around a little bit. With 3 of them, I think, maybe 4 on Ryan Staub, who's not really he's more of a drop-back guy. He's not a guy that's going to get out and move and run away from anybody. And so last week, I think, memory serves, I think Salter had 1 last week. I think he had 1 in the first game. So he hasn't had that many yet because of the way he can kind of get away and escape. And so I think you can probably pass around those sacks and kind of spread them around between the offensive line of the 3 quarterbacks that have played up to this point. Now, we did get word today, by the way, speaking of that kind of thing, it sounds like Jordan Seaton is going to play, the outstanding left tackle who through 4 games has been the highest rated, I think, offensive lineman, according to Pro Football Focus, in the country. He's got a little hamstring issue that took him out of the second half last week. I think they expect him back, which is a good sign for Colorado up front.
So Pat Shermer now a couple of years at the helm. Give me your thoughts on Pat, just the way he calls a game and kind of his quarterback usage and his style.
Well, it's interesting here in kind of the Denver area. You got to remember, Pat was the offensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos.
Yep.
And it was not a good tenure while he was there. And so Broncos fans, and obviously Buffs fans and Broncos fans, there's a lot of crossover. And so Pat gets this position with Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes, and already there's this preconceived notion that, it's Pat Shermer, the same guy we hated with the Broncos, now we're going to hate him with the Buffs. I think Pat's been solid as the offensive coordinator. Obviously, last year, things were a little bit easier. Have number 2 throw to number 12. That's a pretty simple thing. I think I could have called a lot of those plays. This year's been more challenging, and he's taken some heat from Buffs fans at this point. I think he's done a solid job. There's been a few times I thought the first couple of games he was relying on a few different things, got relatively predictive, I think, at some points early in the game. I thought he really called a nice offensive game against Wyoming the other day. And part of that might be to do with the better performance of the quarterback and what he was able to do and how creative he can get with his skill set. So I'm hopeful in that regard.
Mark, when you look at Deion Sanders and being around him the last few seasons, was there a moment in the offseason where you thought, okay, Travis Hunter's gone, his son's gone, maybe he'll shut it down and maybe take a shot at the NFL or just call it good? Was there a moment you felt like that, or did you feel pretty confident he was going to come back all along?
Well, I think that's a reasonable question for all of us to have after last year, right? Because he had never coached without his sons, and it was reasonable to think, I can see him. I still don't think he really will ever coach in the NFL. I don't see that in him, right? And the reason I say that, the NFL is a player's game, college is a coach's game, and you don't want the biggest star in your organization to be the head coach, for goodness sakes, not the National Football League. So I've never thought that was the step. I always thought that when Deion stepped away, he'd probably end up on the pregame show on Fox or ESPN or something along those lines, making all kinds of money. He'd be traveling around to watch his sons play and that sort of thing. But it was a reasonable, I think, question at the end of last season. And then he got the new contract. But then, remember, things got very quiet. It was such an odd offseason considering who the head coach was. The first 2 years, it was just a circus. I mean, the atmosphere, the attention, the activity, it never ended. And then this last year, obviously, as it turns out, we found out he had the cancer scare. And so there were times during the offseason I'm thinking, what? Because you couldn't find out what was going on. At one point, right on June 1st, I finally was told there's a health issue and it's serious, and somebody mentioned the C word. And I'm like, oh, man, I hope it's not bad. I sent him a message, didn't get any response. And so I kind of wondered, after that, I thought, okay, well, I don't think he's going anywhere. He's still doing this health thing. But prior to that, I was still kind of wondering if he might, move on and try something else. But, I'll tell you this, man, as much as he and I talk now the season's underway, I mean, he loves coaching. He loves it. They've given him the keys to the kingdom at CU. He kind of rules the roost here. And I think he's having a good time with what he's doing. And so as long as the health, continues, I think he'll stick with this for a while.
So, Mark, I have a D1 athlete's son that's really good. He's on an LDS mission right now, and he's doing his thing. He'll come back. He's committed to Utah State. But Scotty asked me, would you let your son play for Deion Sanders? And I answer with an emphatic yes, absolutely, because I think he's a God-fearing man. I think that he's got high character. I think that he institutes really good policies. Am I accurate in that? Is that perception of how Deion Sanders handles his business accurate, or do you feel like it's more of a false front?
Well, I'll say this, because of and I use this term not describing him, but you'll get the sense of it. Because of the Kardashian-esque part of what you see from the outside with Deion Sanders, all the social media, all the television stuff, everything that happens, right? There's always something going on attention-wise. What gets lost in this entire, circus atmosphere from the outside is the fact that there's a real football operation going on the inside. And when it comes to the conduct of his players, what he requires of them, how he handles them, you walk around a facility and there, the signs up about when you walk in, no phones, no caps, no flip-flops, none of these. I mean, it's very old school and traditional from that standpoint. And so it's hard for people on the other side to really understand that because of all the hoopla and the magnitude of the attention that this thing garners. But what you see in terms of the discipline, what he requires, the classwork, the video work, the conduct, the yes ma'am, no sir, those kind of things, that he really that traditional Southern kind of decorum and manners and things. He requires all of that of his guys. And I'll tell you this, in regards to dealing with the players, because of how he demands that of them, you get the same thing. I mean, when I go to the locker room to grab somebody, it's yes sir, no sir, Mr. Johnson this, Mr. Johnson that. And so when it comes to that kind of stuff, to your point about allowing your son to play for him, yeah, I'd feel comfortable. If my son was of that age, I'd feel comfortable in that regard as well, because he does require a certain degree and level of conduct within that, the context of the team, and it's pretty admirable, to be honest with you.
Jay Hill in this BYU defense, through that Colorado offense, a bit of a curveball in that bowl game with a lot of different sets, a lot of different looks. Probably you'll get a lot of that coming up this weekend. How prepared do you think that Colorado offense will be for a really good BYU defense?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're talking about is anybody bringing up. Who is thinking about it? They're not going to talk about it, but I guarantee you Pat Shermer and Rob Livingston are thinking about that, because both those guys came out of that bowl game in San Antonio thinking they got their tails kicked. And knowing the competitiveness and pride of those guys, they're the ones that are thinking, okay, all right, you guys got us last year. We got to try and turn this thing around. So I guarantee you there'll be a little I think, certainly intensity from those guys, making sure that they're able to answer from an X's and O's standpoint what beat them last year in the bowl game.
Mark, last thing from me. I just wanted to get a thought from you on Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State parting ways. Your thoughts on Mike, and what does Oklahoma State have in their future?
Well, that's a great question. In regards to Mike Gundy, you know what I liked about Mike Gundy? And I know we like to laugh at Mike, the mullet and the I'm a man and all those kind of things that we think about with Mike Gundy. The thing I always enjoyed about him, and I didn't deal with him a lot, but certainly there were different times. I did a couple of national games involving him and obviously cross paths, within the confines of the Big 12. But I always appreciated Mike. What you saw from Mike, that's what Mike was. There was an authenticity about him. He's interesting, right? I mean, he was a heck of a football coach. What he did in 21 years, what was it, 18 straight winning seasons? Yeah. And I think before he took over, did I read they had only 4 out of 16? I mean, what Mike did, I think, in terms of the X's and O's and what he did as a football coach was outstanding. And then I always tell people, the guys like you and me, we're in the interesting business, right? And too many coaches are very homogenized and never say anything. Mike Gundy was going to tell you what he think, right, wrong, or indifference. And it was interesting, and it was fun, and I appreciated that aspect of Mike Gundy. And so I'm disappointed that he's not going to be a head coach for the remainder of this season in the Big 12, because it was always fun when Mike Gundy was around. And so, it was kind of a Mike Leach kind of feel to him in regards to what he's saying, what he wouldn't say, and the things that he do. And so I missed that. Now, in regards to Oklahoma State, now that's going to be an interesting deal, man. The way that college football and athletics is unfolding and how it's evolving. And, I was on a show the other day, and some guy called in and he said, well, we're kind of, this thing's settling down, isn't it? And I said, guys, it's the old military adage. I said, it's only quiet because everyone's reloading, right? This is just a pause before the storm comes back. So right now, all of us, unless you're the top dogs in college athletics, we're all in a game of musical chairs right now. And we want to make sure that whatever this thing, when the music stops, we've got a chair sitting at the highest level of college football. And now Oklahoma State's going to find itself looking for a new coach, trying to become relevant again to make sure that whenever this thing stops in the next 2-3 years, that they're going to be in a seat that puts them in a prime position that we're all looking for.
Mark, always a pleasure, always an honor catching up with you. Thanks for your time, and let's do it again soon.
All right, guys. Take care.
See you this weekend.
Mark Johnson, Colorado play-by-play voice. You know what? I could see the Colorado pregame spread for the media mill being either really good or really bad. I don't think there's going to be an in-between. I could see boiled hot dogs that have a little green tinge to them, or some really decked-out good barbecue.
ECU was not good.
Oh, I didn't ask you about that.
No, it was not good.
Yeah, I can see that.
None of the food in ECU.
Like there was see hot dogs there?
What's that?
At Colorado, hot dogs?
Yeah, I could see that. Or I could see
I was thinking prime rib or something.
Well, that's the thing. I could see it going one of two ways, because they're spending a lot of money in a lot of areas. What's the first thing you start to cut back on? The media mills.
I can promise you there won't be bison burgers.
Yeah, just a nice...
I don't know. Ralphie retired, so...
They're feeding us Ralphie?
Well, they got a new Ralphie, and the old one is on the media table.
Are you saying they're feeding us Ralphie?
Disgusting. Scotty.
You're saying they're feeding us Ralphie? Oh.
That might be one of the worst things you've ever said.
Hey, look, there was a time in our country's history where you never waste anything, right?
Not even your mascots?
Just saying. It's quality. It's quality protein right there.
The worst media room in the world is in Las Vegas.
That's a fact.
The worst media room.
Was that the bowl game or the Notre Dame BYU game?
It's all of the above.
It was the Raiders. Were
Were you there for? Yeah,
I've done Raiders.
You ate there at the Big 12 media days.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. I will say,
It's trash.
when I called a Raiders game, they had a separate spread for the TV people that was in a booth next to us, and I just sneaked over there and grabbed their food, and it was awesome.
That's number one. Number two was Kansas.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now
Kansas.
is that the one where Mitch put you on some tacos that were really good?
No.
For some reason, I thought.
Oh no, it was the guy that was there before Mitch.
Oh, okay.
Yes, took us to a taco shop.
Okay, and I know that one was good, but the meal itself for the
media day
media was awful.
No, it was horrible.
What did Kansas have?
It was one of those white and yellow brats. It's like in a thick casing.
Yeah.
And it was on a dry bun. Yeah, it was on a dry bun. It was like, nah, come on, man. Like, we can do better than this in Kansas, can't we?
Yeah.
Okay, so give me your thoughts. Buffalo, Colorado. How am I going to come back and be happy or sad?
I think you're going to be sad. That's my guess.
Well,
I could see them because look, you're paying Prime a lot of money. You've done a lot of stadium stuff. You got to cut back somewhere. Well, let's cut back on the media meal. Give them some hot dogs.
It's usually how it goes.
I do eat the media meal every time. I eat it because I know what BYU puts out. BYU puts out a top-end product.
Oh, BYU's is second to none.
It's a top-end media meal.
Yeah.
And everybody you talk to is like, geez, you guys go all out.
Yeah.
So I have not had Utah's in probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, same.
Utah's media meal, it used to be
solid.
It used to be very solid.
Yeah. Utah State's is okay. They do okay.
Do they have a mainstay? Do they roll out the same meal every time?
No, it's always different. Oh. But the problem is they try to like match it with the team a little bit. And so like, if Hawaii's in town, it's Hawaii Haystacks.
Oh.
Or if it's, Boise State,
You're
it's a
always
baked potato
fail
bar.
at somebody else's thing.
It's like that's their thing. Let's do our thing.
Uh-huh.
Let's not try to match them. Let's just hone in on us and get some brisket and ribs.
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
Maybe we could start greasing the wheels when we have the new AD on.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, let's find our thing.
Yeah.
Let's just serve them good old-fashioned Cache Valley cheese.
And ice cream.
Cheese and ice cream.
That's all
cheese
you need.
curds.
Send them home with a basket. What's the specialty cheese that's out there?
Up at Gosner?
Gosner.
Yeah.
Send them home with a Gosner basket.
There you go.
I always look forward to you and I calling the Idaho Bowl because they always do a good stuffed tater.
They do. They don't mess around there.
Yeah, they load it up.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The wheel is loaded, and it's time to talk some sports. This is Sports Roulette with Hans and Scotty on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Time for another edition of Sports Roulette. We take the big storylines, we put it on a roulette wheel, we spin it. That wheel's been worn out, man. We put that thing through the ringer over the last decade. Is it time to retire the wheel?
I just oiled it a couple weeks ago.
All right. Put a new...
maybe. I don't know.
A new dose of lacquer on it.
Might light right up.
There you go. All right. Well, let's get to it. Lloyd, fire up that wheel.
BYU enters the AP Top 25.
Well, it took a minute, maybe a week longer than we thought, but BYU now in the AP Top 25 released yesterday. They sneak in hands at number 25. No big shock. Utah tumbles out of the top 25 from 16 all the way out.
But Illinois stayed in after a 63-10.
I mean, yeah, you say no surprise, and I kind of expected it. I didn't expect them to fall all the way to 30.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. And I kind of thought still, I'm like, no, they'll probably drop into 25. Because it was a top 25. I mean, that was the number 17 team in the country that beat you.
Yeah, but had it been a 13-10 or even 20-10, that they would have stayed in. They wouldn't have dropped out.
Yeah.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think
they wouldn't have.
There's a lot of people, a lot of voters, unfortunately, but we've seen with videos and people doing dumb things that these aren't the most smart voters out there. They're not doing a lot of research. They didn't know that this was a one possession game with 7 or 8 minutes left. They just see 34-10. And they're like, oh, geez, they got to hand it to them.
At home.
At home.
Bury him.
Yeah.
Put him down at 30. A couple conversation points. BYU now 3-0. Good win on the road against CCU. Good win against an ACC team. And they just sneak into the top 25 at number 25.
Yeah.
I just want to make it really clear for everybody. Every voter is looking at a true freshman quarterback and saying it's a false front. That's all it is. And no voter wants to get caught with their hand in a cookie jar where it's like, okay, you put your faith in a true freshman. Oh, you put him at number 14 and you give them the respect they deserve. Oh, but they go to Colorado and they lose a bad one. This is a bad one and an ugly loss to Colorado.
Yeah.
And the true freshman threw 2 picks and he fumbled once and the offense had 180 yards of total offense. And now you look dumb as a voter.
Yeah.
No voter wants to give a true freshman any leeway because they know at some point the true freshman is going to make them look stupid. So just understand, as a BYU fan, it's going to take a minute. In fact, I would love to know because I compare where BYU is right now. I compare them to Arizona State because you've got yourself a big-time running back in L.J. Martin.
Yep.
It's averaging over 100 yards a game. You've got yourself a freshman quarterback that nobody believes in but nobody really knows a lot about. You got yourself a good offensive line that everybody wants to kind of discount, but it's a good offensive line with some good leaders. And you got yourself a pretty darn incredible defense.
Yeah.
Well, Arizona State won a Big 12 championship and went to a college football playoff with that.
And almost won a game in the college football playoff.
And nearly won a game in the college football playoff. Double overtime against Texas.
Yeah.
So how long did it take Arizona State to get into the AP Top 25 last year? That's what I'd like to know.
That's a great question. I know. I bet BYU's ahead of schedule.
I think they're ahead of Arizona State
Yeah.
because Arizona State, they were buried. They were picked as the 16th team in the Big 12 last year.
Yeah.
And they won it. So I think the voters are like, well, let's just not get caught with our hand in the cookie jar. We'll be slow to reward. But what I like about this, and BYU fans, you should like it too, every point of movement is earned. Not predicted, not projected, not maybe this could be them. It's like every move you make is earned movement. Like, yeah, we proved it, and we proved it again, and we proved it again. So BYU fans just recognize that and be happy with the movement and say, oh, no, this is not a guess. This is what they are. They've earned that. So, yeah, 25. And to be honest with you, Scotty, it's like for me, I believe in Bear Bachmeier. I believe that Bear is going to do what Roderick tells him to do and stay inside the construct of the offense because he's a smart kid.
Yeah.
He's really smart. Now, at some point, is the limiting construct of the offense going to cause you a loss? Because what you're asking Bear to do is so limited, is it going to cause you a loss? And then can you start to expand to prevent against that loss? Because I do think you're going to hit a team like Texas Tech. You may have to score 28.
Yeah.
In Lubbock.
This BYU defense is lights out. They're going to have a bad day at the office.
Right.
Somewhere along it just happens.
Right. So, maybe it's Lubbock.
Yeah.
And maybe they put up 28 on you, and then you're like, okay, Mr. Freshman.
Go do your thing.
Time to go earn that
reins are loose.
top 25 thing.
Let him grow a little bit.
And, I'm seeing steps that makes me think this guy might really be it.
Yeah.
He may be it. He had a beautiful play action look to Carson Ryan for a touchdown that drew every defender on just a kind of a tornado spin and pass to the seam that was like, geez, that was nicely timed, nicely executed for a true freshman. That showed some signs of understanding of defensive timing and what safeties are thinking when they're looking at a quarterback that looks like he's delivering some type of end around or reverse, but then quickly turns and drops it perfectly into a seam. Those kinds of things are nice to see. Now, can it happen at Lubbock? I don't see why it couldn't. but at some point you're going to need it.
Yeah.
But voters just aren't willing to just give it to you.
Nope. Got to go out and earn it. All right, we'll wrap this thing up next. Get you ready for JJ and Alex straight ahead. Hans and Scotty, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.